So you want to become an architect. Follow this video for the quickest and simplest way to qualify, just like I did. I'm a registered architect here in the UK, but to ensure that I'm not excluding any of you, this guide will cover how to qualify in countries all around the globe, and these are bookmarked out in the timeline below. All that I ask in return, if you get any value whatsoever from this video, please like and subscribe below. Your support means I can continue making videos on architecture and the architectural profession. Qualification as an architect varies from place to place, but there are three key elements that are consistent no matter what country you're based in. Number one, a university accredited architecture program. Number two, an internship or period of experience in an architectural office. And component number three, formal registration with your country's governing body, which typically involves additional exams. Here in the UK, there are two main routes to becoming an architect. Number one, the traditional university route, and number two, a newer hybrid apprenticeship route that has been enforced since 2018. If you choose to follow the traditional university route, this takes 7 years as a minimum length to be able to go from no qualification at all to a fully registered architect in the UK. And it typically is comprised of three main parts: the part one, the part two, and the part three. Part one in the UK involves undertaking a bachelor's degree, which typically takes 3 years and is a full-time method of study. Following part one, you must take a minimum of 1 year out between university to go and gain some professional experience in an architectural office. And during this time, you're expected to complete what's called a PEDR, which is a professional experience developmental record, which basically means that you log the type of work that you've done and how many hours you've done doing it during your year out. Following part one and your time out in professional office, you're then expected to go and undertake a part two, which essentially is a master's or a postgraduate degree course at university, and typically takes 2 years if you're studying full time. At selected universities, you can opt to study part-time, however, this will take longer than 2 years to complete the equivalent course. Once again, just like the part one, once you've completed your part two, you're expected to go and do another minimum of 1 year's professional experience in architectural office. Once you've completed all the relevant degrees and the professional experience, you can then apply to take the part three, which is the final part of the architectural qualification. Typically, the part three qualification takes a year and is not full-time. So you are working full-time for an architectural office and expected to attend university lectures in the evening or on selected days throughout the calendar year. During the part three course, you will complete a series of coursework assignments, and typically you then complete a series of exams and interviews at the end of the part three. Should you pass all of these, you are able to register as an architect in the UK and will have completed the process. The architectural apprenticeships combine practical experience from an architectural office with academic training from a registered university. You're employed full-time by an architectural office who have an obligation to ensure that you see the necessary parts of working in the industry to suitably qualify you at the end. Typically, this is managed day-to-day by an office mentor that you'll be assigned. However, it should be noted that only certain practices in the UK offer the architectural apprenticeship route. I've included a link of all the UK practices below in the description. It's expected that a minimum of 20% of your time should be spent at university, so therefore your employer typically tends to release you for 1 day a week to go to university to study. There are two huge advantages if you choose to pursue the architectural apprenticeship scheme. You're essentially paid to study, as your employer will pay you a working wage. And number two, you won't rack up any student debt like I have, as your employer essentially pays the university for the course. You don't pay any fees at all. There are two different tiers of architectural apprenticeship qualification here in the UK. A level 6 architectural apprenticeship, which essentially is equivalent to the part 1 qualification here in the UK. And there's a level 7 architectural apprenticeship, which essentially is equivalent to taking both the part 2 and the part 3 professional qualifications here in the UK. Both of these take a period of 4 years. So if you were to do both the level 6 and the level 7 to take you right through from a novice through to qualification as an architect, it would take you a period of 8 years. These can be mixed and matched between the traditional university approach and the architectural apprenticeship scheme. So for example, you could do a traditional bachelor's degree as a part 1, and then you could undertake the level 7 architectural apprenticeship scheme to take you through to qualification. Equally, vice versa, you you could choose to do the level 6 architectural apprenticeship, which would qualify as a part 1, and then you could pursue a more traditional part 2 and part 3 to take you through to qualification. For more information on which schools offer which degrees and which apprenticeships, please follow the links down in the description below. For those of you in the US, the process of becoming an architect is very similar to those here in the UK. Qualification requires a degree from an accredited architecture program, and typically there are 2 routes to achieve this. There is a B-Arch, which typically takes 5 years, which is a bachelor's or undergraduate degree, or the alternative route is to obtain an M-Arch, which is a postmaster's architect's degree, which typically takes 2 to 3 years in the US. To help you guys out, in the description I've included a link to the full list of the NAAB, or the National Architecture Accreditation Board, full list of accredited architecture degree programs. Once an NAAB accredited degree has been achieved, you can pursue licensure, which is equivalent to the Part 3 qualification here in the UK. Obtaining licensure requires documented professional experience in a US architectural office, and the program for logging that experience is managed through the NAAB Architectural Experience Program, or AXP. The AXP identifies 96 key tasks that fall across 6 main areas of architectural practice. To demonstrate your ability to perform those tasks, you'll need to report a minimum of 3,740 hours before being allowed to take the final architect registration examination. Once you pass the exams and complete the experience requirements, you can apply for licensure. However, this does differ slightly in the US compared to the UK, as you obtain your license from your state in the US. You can register for licensure in multiple states, however requirements differ slightly from state to state, so please check specific requirements. And finally, for a European audience, the qualification process for an architect is again very similar to the UK, however it does vary slightly country to country. To keep the video somewhat brief, I'm not going to go into the specific details of qualification requirements in each individual country. However, what I've done instead is link in the description below to the Architects Council of Europe website. They have a brilliant breakdown for each specific country to list out the precise qualification requirements. However, consistently across the majority of the European countries, it's expected that you'll achieve at least 5 years in university accredited education to achieve your bachelor's and your diploma qualifications, and then typically you'll spend somewhere between 6 and 36 months in professional practice before you have enough experience to be able to take the final registration exams in that specific country. If you enjoyed this video, then why not check out another video on how much money architects really make? Link in the video card to the bottom right of your screen.